With the first wave of NFL free agency officially in the books, it would appear that new reports are coming out that the Lions are interested in adding yet another star to their roster, and we're going to talk about it in this episode. So stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. It doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Lions fans, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving in. So here's the thing, folks. This offseason has definitely been an interesting one for Lions fans because, again, there have been a lot of reports. There's been a lot of rumors. There's been a lot of different thought processes that have come out where the Lions have been quote-unquote reportedly connected to this player. They've been quote-unquote reportedly connected to that player, interested, whatever term you'd like to use. And some of these names have been some really big-time players. However, though, I'm just going to say this. Much like almost damn near every year, these quote-unquote reports, these rumors, these supposed connections, whatever term you'd like to use, to these big-time free agents that the Lions may or may not be interested in, they usually largely fall unanswered. They usually wind up being a whole bunch of hoax, a whole bunch of fake news, a whole bunch of whatever that somebody just conjured out of thin air. And again, if you think about it, some of the names that a lot of people have talked about already this year are guys like Danielle Hunter, who wound up signing with a different team than the Lions, Eric Armstead, who wound up signing with a different team than the Lions, even though it definitely was reported that both of those guys were interested in joining the Lions and that the Lions were interested in them. L'Jarius Sneed, I know a lot of people had heard that the Lions were wanting to trade for him and then wound up, he got traded to the freaking Titans. Kendall Fuller was a cornerback that a lot of people thought that the Lions were going to potentially go out into free agency and get, and he went, I think, was to the Dolphins. So it's like, a lot of these guys that we were, supposedly connected to, supposedly had interest in, didn't wind up panning out. The only one that was actually reported that actually did wind up panning out was DJ Reader. Other than that, nobody else really panned out for us. And if there's one thing that we know about all those names is that, again, we were all connected to all of them, but the only one, like I said, that panned out was Reader, and that was because he was the only one that actually got invited, actually got brought to the Lions facility, and that was it. Past that, nobody else really had any sort of connection to the Lions. But now we're getting new reports. Now we're getting new rumors. Now we're getting new, supposed ideas of another free agent that the Lions are supposedly, reportedly interested in or linked to. And that free agent is Xavien Howard, the former cornerback of the Miami Dolphins. Now, I'm going to say this. Much like the supposed interest for the players like Fuller, Sneed, and a couple of the other guys that I mentioned, the initial idea of this supposed rumor, the supposed interest, it does have some value at its face. And this is what I mean. The Lions definitely have a hole that it would behoove them to fill after the release of Cameron Sutton. However, past that whole point, the issues that arise from this whole idea that the Lions are, again, I keep using this word, supposedly interested in Xavien Howard, they start coming about rather quickly once you actually start diving into the whole thought process of about the Lions being interested in him. First, let's consider the guys that are in the front office, because ultimately they're the ones that make the decisions, and nothing's going to happen unless both of those guys sign off on it. And that's Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. Let's first and foremost understand what both of these men have said in regards to the cornerback position, because both of them had something very interesting to say on that mark. When you think about it, Dan Campbell recently just stated that the Lions are still looking to upgrade. They're still looking to add to the cornerback room. They still want to bring in somebody. And again, this is especially apparent after Cameron Sutton getting released, which again would make sense because I know a lot of people are not going to like me saying this, but it is the truth. No matter how displeasurable it is to people or how much it has a bad aftertaste in people's mouths, but Cameron Sutton was the Lions' #1 cornerback last season. And so they're going to have to find somebody to fill that void. They're going to have to find somebody, if for nothing else, to fill the roster spot that Sutton had and help in that cornerback room. Now, that is what we know from Campbell. That's what he said. However, though, it would seem that that thought process was then contradicted or given a different perspective, at the very least, from GM Brad Holmes, who then said that he does not see the cornerback position as a position of need that needs to be filled. Rather, it seems like to him, that need is not necessarily the word. So actually, it could kind of be stated that for once, there's kind of a rare instance where these two are not necessarily on the same page, or rather, it appears they're not on the same page. Again, the best way I can kind of look at this disagreement, if you want to even call it a disagreement, is that it's more or less understanding the language barrier, the language difference between the two. Because I don't necessarily think there's a schism or there's some sort of dissension between Holmes and Campbell. I just think anybody who might even think that is kind of ridiculous, because it's like, dude, these two are always talking. Every single day they're talking. Every single day they're coming to conclusions. They're making up ideas about how they want this roster to go. It would seem foolish to me that these guys would get out in front of cameras and they would not have a concrete idea about how they're thinking in regards to one another. So rather, I think that what is going on with that whole statement is that what Campbell is saying is that it's not necessarily a need, but that it's a very high priority, like a want or something that he would really like to have added. And what Holmes is simply saying is that, listen, it's not a need. Again, this is the thing about the English language, which is a problem for a lot of people, is that certain words get thrown out and we instantaneously associate them with different meanings. And that's not the way it works. There is a very clear difference between the word need and want. Need specifies that you can't live without it. You have no choice. You have to have it. Want specifies that there is a choice. I can choose to take it or leave it. So the way I'm looking at it is that Campbell wants to add another cornerback to that room. He wants to add more competition. He wants to add more talent. But what Holmes is saying, in opposite of Campbell, is that, listen, we don't necessarily need to add anybody else, but we are probably still going to be looking to add more to it. Now, that brings us to this whole point about Xavien Howard. Is Xavien Howard a guy that, the Lions are, as the reporting is that's coming out now, interested in, bringing him in? Here's what I think, though, is when you think about it, as I've said before with potential players that the Lions have, again, been reportedly interested in. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. It's theoretical. But I am not banking on it. And there's a couple of reasons why I'm not banking on it. Because let's think about this. This leads me into some of the problems that I have with Xavien Howard as a potential target. Because we have to first and foremost understand who Brad Holmes is and how Brad Holmes has built this roster. Holmes is, as I've said before, and I will say it again now, he has simply never made huge swings in free agency. He's never gone out and just said, hey, I'm going to throw all the money I can at these guys to try and bring them in. Holmes is selective. He's deliberate. He is very methodical about how he goes and selects players. He's not just going to grab anybody that he can get his hands on. And furthermore, the guys that he does grab, he's not giving them a whole bunch of cash. Well, that right there kind of is a bit of a problem, because even though Xavien Howard has said he would take less money to play with a competitor, what exactly is less money to Xavien Howard? Because if he's still thinking he's going to get a pretty decently sized bag, I don't think that's going to happen. But then you also have to think about this as well. Again, the largest contract that freaking Holmes has ever given to a free agent was the guy we just released in Cameron Sutton. Other than that, we haven't even come close to getting another contract that's large, as far as both years and in terms of money. So to me, it's like, okay, that also poses a problem. And then the final problem of this whole situation is, why would Brad Holmes go out into free agency to grab a cornerback when this draft that we've literally got coming up in about a month's time is got a whole bunch of quality corners in it? Like literally, there's about 5 or 6 quality corners that are going to be in the first 2 rounds that Brad Holmes, if he really wanted, he could probably get. So it's like, to me, it's like, Why would Brad Holmes go with a guy that's a veteran that is going to be a lot more stubborn, a lot more less willing to work with the team versus bringing in a guy like he's done with everybody else that's made very big waves with the Lions and mold them from the beginning? And that's the first part of this issue that I have with Xavien Howard. But then there's the second part. Again, everybody likes to use PFF. I'm not as big on PFF as a lot of others, but I use it to give demonstrative purposes. I use it for comparative analysis here. So, go to PFF. And if you start checking out Xavien Howard's past years in the NFL, his career in the NFL, I'm just going to put it out there right now. Howard has not exactly been the best cornerback in the NFL. However, he's not exactly been the worst either. But if you think about it, Xavien Howard, when he got released, it was viewed as a big deal because he was supposed to be one of the best cornerbacks to hit the free agency market. But yet, we've already gone through the first wave of free agency. Nobody's picked him up. So that right there kind of contradicts that narrative. But if you take a look at Xavien Howard's stats over the years, it also kind of paints a very different picture than him being supposedly one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. Because let's first and foremost take a look at the stats here. If you take a look at Xavien Howard's production, over the course of his career, he has a lower than 60%, reception rate to wide receivers. It's actually at a 57.8 for his career. So that's pretty good, actually. And then if you take a look at the quarterback passer rating that he's allowed to opposing quarterbacks, again, it's not bad either. It's actually pretty good. It's an 81.6. So it's like, okay, he's very good at not allowing receptions, and he makes quarterbacks' lives typically very difficult. So there's at least decent statistical production from that perspective. But there's a couple of reasons why the stats are not the total picture. First and foremost, let's understand Xavien Howard's age. He's 30 years old. I know I have gotten a lot of flack from people about the whole age barrier nonsense, but it's like, listen, cornerback, running back, wide receiver, positions that require a lot of speed, a lot of agility, a lot of stamina, when you hit that big 3-0, you start going down fast. And it's like, listen, Xavien Howard is going to want a decently sized contract. He ain't just going to play for little or nothing. So it's like, listen, for a 30-year-old cornerback that already has not exactly had the best overall career from what I'm about to demonstrate, I don't think that would make a whole lot of sense. Now, I will say this. If Xavien Howard was like 3 or 4 years younger, then I would seriously actually entertain this idea because it's like, hey, you could bring him in for a decent contract and he's still got 3 or 4 more good years of production left in him rather than maybe 1 or 2 at best. But the main reason, other than the age factor, that I'm not really all that big on Xavien Howard is this. Let's understand something here. In 2023, Xavien Howard had Jalen Ramsey opposite of him on the Dolphins defense. But yet, he was not very good in 2023, and he wasn't very good in 2022. So if you have Jalen Ramsey opposite of you on the same field and you're not still playing very good, that's a bit concerning to me. But then when you also check Howard's coverage grades over the course of his career, which he's been in the NFL for 8 years now, by the way, there's only been 3 years where he's had above 70 in terms of his coverage grades. And that was in 2018, 2020, and 2021. And of those 3 seasons, the only one that was considered elite was 2020. Other than that, they were considered good to average seasons. But again, this is why I like doing what I do. If you add up all the coverage grades and you average them out, his average coverage grade over the course of his career is a pedestrian 65.2. For a guy that's considered one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and you have a sub-70 PFF grade as far as your average over the course of your career, that is, again, a bit problematic for me. So, then you go further into the statistics. If you further check out 2022 and 2023 for Xavien Howard, you would notice that he gave up 8 touchdowns while only garnering 2 interceptions over the last 2 years. So that right there is a 4-to-1 difference in terms of touchdowns given up to interceptions that he's gotten. That's a bit of a problem. And then if you start taking a look at the other stats, he's given up 1,328 yards in those 2 years and a completion rate percentage of 64.9%. That means over the last 2 years that he's been in the NFL, with Jalen Ramsey on the same field for one of those years, he's given up a quarterback passer rating of 105. For supposedly one of the best cornerbacks in the league, you've given up a 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio in regards to balls thrown your way. You've given up almost 1,400 passing yards over 2 seasons and almost a 65 completion percentage rate and a 105 passer rating. That right there doesn't tell me that you're a good cornerback. That right there tells me that you're already starting to go on the decline. That tells me you're already starting to slip. So when you consider the fact that Xavien Howard is 30 years old, he hasn't played very well over the last 2 years, and in the last year he was with the Dolphins, opposite of freaking Jalen Ramsey, he still didn't play very well, and his overall coverage grade has been subpar for the majority of his career, I just don't think, to me, that spells that the Lions are going to actually be willing to jump on him. And again, this rumored reported interest, I think, again, is somebody just saying, hey, you know what? The Lions have a cornerback need. Xavien Howard is still out there. The Lions could be interested. The Lions might want to go after him. But I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm Brad Holmes, I'm not looking at anything else in free agency. I'm now looking towards the draft. The draft is less than a month away, folks. Free agency at this point is no longer the main thing for a lot of GMs. It's now, okay, we need to start getting deeper into these draft classes. We need to start getting deeper into these draft profiles. We need to start meeting and greeting with these prospects that we're interested in. We need to know more about them to make sure that this is the right guy that we want. So as far as I'm concerned, is Xavien Howard an interesting prospect? Yeah, he's interesting. But that's about it. I don't think the Lions are going to reach out to him, and I don't think that, if anybody sees anything about Xavien Howard, they should realistically take it serious. This is more me saying, hey, you know what? Is there a reported interest? Yes. But is it most likely realistic? No, it's not. This is me kind of discrediting that. That's what this video is about. It's not necessarily to say, yeah, I think that we should go out and get Xavien Howard. No, not at all. But anyway, just wanted to put this video together really quickly, give you guys my thoughts on this whole thing, because I know some people have brought up his name in the past, and I know it's probably going to start garnering a little bit more attention because we, again, are in a bit of a lull period. But anyway, folks, having said all that, I'm going to end the episode and say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and not had a chance to do so, again, please make sure you subscribe, but also make sure you turn on that bell notification icon at the bottom so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Again, subscription numbers are always going up, but we want to make sure you guys turn on that notification icon as well. I also encourage y'all please to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we share it, the greater the channel spreads, the greater the channel grows. And with that being said, to everybody, I just want to say thank you all for being such an awesome crowd, an awesome community. You guys are wonderful, wonderful subscribers and fans, and I'm thankful for every one of y'all. Hope y'all have something today that makes you smile. Hope y'all have something today that makes you happy. And with that, I hope y'all enjoyed the content. God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see y'all in the next episode.